Okay, this is really just to give you some basic ideas and an introduction to your collaborative piece of work that you're going to start this week. The idea is that when you look at the work package, we're intending that you spend possibly about 9 hours to begin to create this piece of work that eventually is going to be 1,000 words long. The idea is that you spend time on it this week. It then goes into the background perhaps next week while you're focusing on teaching, and then the week after next, when you then have a reflection week, another 10 hours will be given over during that week to finishing off this piece of work. So this week is more about beginning to find a few articles to read, to make contact with your partner, and to begin to decide how you're going to work, and to begin to draft out a little bit of work, about 500 or 600 words between you, to send to your tutor by Sunday, for them really just to have a bit of a look through and to give you some formative feedback, just to give you a few ideas. In terms of some initial thoughts for organising your work for this week, obviously it will be useful to make contact with your work partner sooner rather than later, and at that point you can decide whether or not you would prefer just to contact and talk to each other by email, or whether or not sort of using Skype and actually talking to each other face to face might be quite useful. I think the main things you need to think about quite early on are, first of all, to discuss how you'd like to organise your work together. You know, who's going to be responsible for what, or how would you like to go forward with the piece of work, and I'll come back to that in a second. And then it would also be useful at that point to agree some form of time frame. Remember that the idea is by the end of this week you send a rough draft of some of the ideas that you've got, so that we can give you some advice and some guidance on whether or not what you're proposing and how you're intending to do things look as if they'll work well. And you need to hand in the final piece of work on Sunday the 25th of November. And as I say, it's just 1,000 word piece that the two of you have created together. So agree some kind of loose time frame. We're sort of asking you to look at 3 elements of the work of a learning theorist, so you can decide between you how you might want to split that up. In terms of creating your collaborative piece, again, just think about how you're going to develop the document itself, how you're going to develop the piece of collaborative writing. You might decide that you're just going to email a document backwards and forwards, tracking changes in Word, adding content as you go. The other way that you might do it is that you might take particular questions and then look at those almost independently, and then put them together sort of during the week or later on in the process. So you can look at this in more than one way. Finally, one thing that you might want to do is, if one of you has a Google account, perhaps has a Gmail account, etc., and therefore has a Google account, one of the things you could think about doing, if you know how to or want to investigate it, is to use a Google Doc, which is simply a very simple online word processor that sits within Google, but to which you can invite other people, so that the pair of you can actually write the document in one single place, almost together, and develop it that way. But obviously one of the reasons we're asking you to do this is so that rather than being isolated and just working by yourself, you're actually beginning to make contact with another member of the group, and to develop collaborative skills in writing a short summary and critique of of a learning theorist's work. So hope this has helped, and good luck.